Eleanor. Welcome to Break Room Mom. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am super excited to talk to you. I know we had kind of a 30-minute catch up ahead of this, and it just made me so jazzed for this conversation. So for anyone who's listening, Eleanor has this super impressive background, like 20 plus years in senior leadership roles for all the big names we're talking. We're talking P&G, Diageo, Luxottica. And now you run something called Vibrant Leader Academy, which is a purpose-led business helping women in leadership get more joy from their success. And we're talking women who on paper are so successful, but just don't have a lot of time to enjoy everything that they've built in their lives.
Perfect introduction.
Yes. So as someone who has lived through corporate burnout and survived and lived to tell the tale, I have so many questions for you. But before we dive into all those questions, I want to take a moment and do my favorite thing of these sessions, which is called Our Turn for a Tantrum, where I give you about 60 seconds to vent about anything that your heart so desires. And then I'm going to head into my tantrum for the day as well.
Okay. Let's see. Something that upsets me. Probably something that really upsets me is how women have this brilliant way of treating their own capacity as infinitely flexible, whilst respecting everyone else's boundaries. They are creating this kind of systemic self-neglect that undermines their leadership and also their effectiveness. They are able to manage their team's workload. They're able to protect their boss's time. They respect their partner's boundaries, but they are also overriding their own signals of overload. Like this, just push through.
Sure.
We have these incredibly high expectations of ourselves. And that has this awful impact on our strategic leadership, because when you are totally depleted, you default to execution mode without the space for thinking, right? And it just means we get trapped in reactivity and firefighting, and we're effectively undermining our success. And so I am constantly frustrated by this idea of like, no, but I don't have time right now because I'm so busy and these things, and this deprioritization of ourselves.
I love it. And this is so timely for our conversation today and right on the money. And I could not agree more. And as someone who has constantly said to myself, like, oh, it's just these 2 weeks. It's just these 2 weeks that are crazy where I'm managing everything and everyone else. I just got to get through these next couple of weeks. But I find myself saying that too often, probably.
Yeah. The lie that we tell ourselves, we'll get better. Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to head into my tantrum, and my tantrum for today, I'm sorry, it's way personal. I'm so sorry, but it's what's on my mind for today. Perimenopause. Oh my gosh, no one warned me that I was going to be going through the things that I'm going through in perimenopause. My ears itch. I'm up at 3 a.m. I have weight that I cannot shake no matter how well I'm eating or how well I'm working out. And like, I just wasn't expecting these things, and they all suck.
Oh my gosh. We could do a whole podcast just on that.
On perimenopause. I know. One of my goals is to truly get a perimenopause expert and interview them and be like, give me all the life hacks because this is crazy.
Yeah. Well, amen to that. I definitely deal with all of those things. I can tell you the one thing that's made a massive difference to me is lifting heavy.
Ooh, good. Okay, that's good to know. You've just totally noticed a change in your body and like how, okay. Lifting heavy.
Sprint training instead of long runs. So fast and quick and like as much as you can like struggle for breath. Very short, like the whole sprint training workout will take you like 15 minutes and then lifting heavy. And that honestly has changed everything. It's really helping with hormone regulation. It's really helping with sleep. And I'm not getting muscly because it's really hard to gain muscle, but it's just making me feel much stronger and seems to be sorting out other things.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And I will follow up with you for your workout routine. All right, my friend, I want to start talking about you and the Vibrant Leader Academy. And I think from the start, you did a really, really amazing thing, which was you launched into all these research interviews with women who were potentially in corporate burnout, maybe nearing it. What led you to this? What made you decide this is the path that I want to take to learn?
Great question. So, I mean, I have a background in marketing, right? So, of course, I wasn't going to do anything without doing some market research. And I'd been in corporate for a long time, as we were talking about, and I'd also started a consultancy, which was also serving corporate. And I wanted to do something that was more purposeful. And actually, when I set out on the research, it was researching something completely different. It was based on my understanding and learning around my hormones, around how my periods were affecting how I worked. So, for example, during ovulation, you are naturally magnetic. You literally have an egg releasing pheromones that is like, come and find me. So you're brilliant at networking. Your verbal fluency improves. You can present, you can do sales. Like there are times in the period where you're better at certain things. Follicular is great for strategy. Luteal is great for admin, back office work. So this is something that I had just found completely fascinating and I wanted to get more into. But I wanted to check in and see if this was something that other women might be interested in. And so I put out a request within my network. I posted it in LinkedIn looking for women who had something to say about productivity, energy management, how they were showing up for work. I didn't really mention anything to do with hormones at that stage, but what was really interesting is that when I shared about the hormones, they were like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. But they were dealing with much bigger issues, like it was kind of like, okay, that's not going to fix where I am right now. And so, we are used to overachieving, but that means that we have got extraordinarily high standards for ourselves across everything that we touch. And that pressure is incredible. Some of the phrases that came out consistently from the research were things like, I should be able to do it. I'm failing at everything. Like I'm not being the mom I want to be. I'm not being the employee that I want to be and the leader that I want to be. A lot of guilt about not giving as much as they wanted to give. A lot of people saying you would need 2 people to replace me. Yeah. And often these are women, because I interviewed women who are on the other side of burnout too, and they'd left corporate and they're like, yes, I left. And then they replaced me with 2 people. Just like, oh, of course you were really struggling,
Yeah.
And so I got to the end of these interviews and I had obviously dealt with burnout myself.
Sure.
And I had made some pretty major changes to the way that I operated. And then I really felt that I had something that I could systematize with my own experiences and with these women that I had spoken to. But yeah, I think that for me, I had kind of sorted myself out. And so the hormone piece was helping me go from good to great. But what I found was there were just so many women who are struggling, and I got very interested in how I could help women go from surviving to really loving their success.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And it sounds like you started the path one way, just wanting to understand the hormones and whether or not they knew that that was your intent behind the research. But then you got inundated with, the real picture of high achieving women in the workplace. Oh, man. What was one finding from the research interviews that stopped you in your tracks?
Oh, goodness me. Probably just how consistent it was. The fact I was interviewing women from all over the world, from all different industries. The only kind of prerequisite that they needed to be in senior leadership positions. So they needed to have a team or a team with a team even. But what was shocking to me was just how consistent the stories were, just how consistent the phrases were, and the things that women were facing. This loss of spark, this kind of wondering if this is all there is, like worked so hard to get there. And then just like, okay.
Feeling kind of empty once you're at the top.
Yeah.
I think as women, we tend to do this really terrible thing, which is we don't necessarily admit our vulnerabilities as well as we should with each other. And I think we constantly look around, and whereas I may feel like I'm failing in every aspect of my life, I look at other women and I'm like, well, they're doing fine. It seems like they're great. Like this is a me problem. And so I think hearing like, no, it's not, it's consistently across women means we need to be talking about it more, but it's also a little validating that, those feelings are not just in a silo.
Yes, 100%. We are amazing at wearing masks of capability. And actually, a client that I worked with was listening to a radio show with her husband about burnout. And she said, this is me. I'm on the verge of this. And he was just jaw on the floor, couldn't believe it, was just like, but what? You've never said anything. You never told me about this. And he knew she was stressed, but he had no idea how far it had gone. And so, yeah, we're very good at making the world believe that we're doing great.
Yes. Wearing masks, even down through a single day, the amount of masks that a woman can put on, like I think about, okay, the daycare drop off, my child's in tears, but I'm putting on that brave face when I go into the office. I'm going to pretend what just happened didn't happen. I put on the smiley face for my team. I put on an even bigger smiley face for my client. And then I'm coming home and I can't unravel in front of everybody. I still have to kind of hold it together at the end of the day. So you're exactly right. We are champions at that, champions at masking. I do want to talk, this podcast is, anyone can listen to it. I think my content is probably most helpful to moms and moms who are balancing work and who want to be the best parents that they can be. That's part of the reason why they're listening to the podcast, is they want to learn more and be the best that they can be. When I think about times of corporate burnout in my life, I think about, sure, like the work was hard, the interpersonal challenges, maybe a challenging client, but I also wonder how much of it is tied specifically to the workplace versus compiled by all of the domestic sort of mental load tasks and activities that I was in charge of. And did you find that in your research?
Oh my goodness me, 100%. 100%. The invisible load is very real. There's a stat that women work around 57 minutes per day more than men on household. And that doesn't change if you are the main breadwinner. And that's physical work. That's not even including the emotional load, just the thinking time. And I'd say something that definitely was noticeable, even with women who didn't have kids, if they were doing okay, just about kind of keeping their head above water and everything's okay. And then a parent would get sick. Mm-hmm. Or something else would happen that would require an emotional response and a new stress. And that's where there would be collapse, because we're literally like all of the plates are in the air and anything can disrupt them. And we're, it's one of the reasons why I try to find a way that you can operate successfully and happily without having to resign from your job. Because if you just resign from your job, you're just going to take those same things with you, Interestingly, interviewing women from developing countries, there isn't so much stigma around getting help at home. Because it's something that they grew up with.
That's interesting.
And so even if I interviewed a lady who is from South America, but was living in Sweden and had been in Europe for a long time, but she was just like, I outsource. I don't feel bad about that. I have somebody who comes and does all the cleaning, and she helps with the cooking, and it's an investment, and I know it's like a cost that I'm investing in, but I don't have guilt about that. And I thought that was really interesting, because a lot of the women I spoke to had the financial means to do it, but were just like, oh no, this is like, that's not who I want to be as a mom.
Mm-hmm. I need to be the one to do it. I need to be the one to make sure that I'm present with my kids doing X, Y, and Z. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. Something to learn from sure. Okay, I know we're going to talk about solutions, and we're going to get into your work and how you come alongside women and help them get the most. But I do want to talk a little bit about burnout, because I think someone listening to this may say like, yeah, sure, I'm stressed, or like, yeah, some of this resonates with me, and may not even understand that they're inching closer and closer to potentially a position of burnout. So for you, my friend, how do you think burnout shows up, and how can women recognize early on that they may be heading that way? To your point, they don't have to wait for that plate up in the air to drop and have this big, crack, moment.
What I found staggering, there was a phrase that came up a lot in the interviews, that was boiling the frog. That, just as you said, that it just sneaks up on you, and you have just no idea how bad it is until it all falls apart. And that's really depressing that we have to get to that point. Mm-hmm. Actually, just last week, one of my clients was talking about her boss who had resigned, and she'd resigned. So she'd got this kind of couple of months where she was still doing the job. And her husband actually said, "Oh, it's so nice to have you back, Sue."
Oh, wow.
And it was just like, I really missed you. And she just didn't really recognize that she was taking so much of that home, So I would say a really good sign is what your friends and family are telling you. Also what your team is telling you. If you've got a good relationship with your direct reports and they're saying to you, "Ooh, Eleanor, like you are like things are you seem pretty stressed right now." Like that is a definite sign. Obviously, if you're thinking about quitting, mm-hmm. It's a really big sign. Even on a kind of smaller scale, if you find yourself disconnecting from work, something that you used to be so motivated, you were bouncing out of bed, and now you are feeling resentful and tired and angry. You're caring just so much less, and maybe like not going to important meetings or deprioritizing conversations. Those are really good telltale signs as well. Canceling personal plans, like at the last minute, working through lunch, stopping exercise regimes, anything that is demonstrating that you are deprioritizing yourself in pursuit of being able to finally finish as you said, like, oh, in just 2 weeks, it'll be fine.
Yes.
And then, there's also like a lot of physiological things. So a tightness in the jaw, not sleeping properly. Here's a little test. Just right now, this second, close your eyes. Where is your tongue? Is it pushing into the roof of your mouth?
Yes. Right behind my front teeth, like pushing into the roof of my mouth.
Yes. That's a sign that you're in a state of high engagement. So again, it's just little telltale signs, physiological signs that can show you, okay, this is not a relaxed state.
Yes. Oh my gosh. This is so interesting. I'm so glad we're having this conversation. Talk to me about the Vibrant Leader Academy. What does it mean to lead a team, or in some cases, a family, from a place of vibrance? I love the name, and I think about women and leading vibrantly looks and feels so different than being at a place of, depletion or negativity.
Yeah. I mean, I chose the word vibrant because of how it feels in the body, right? Like when we're vibrant, we are full of energy. We are full of confidence. We're self-assured about our decisions. And you really can't have that if you're depleted, right? It's almost like the opposite of depletion. And I would say that how it shows up in leadership, well, if you really know what to focus on, to make the biggest strategic impact, and you really truly let go of the rest, that is where you can lead from a place of vibrancy, where you've got projects that you know are going to make big impact to the business, but are also going to make big impact to you, both your energy and your career progression. And I would say also that your team knows that you are available to them without you having to always have an open door policy. That they feel trusted to get on. And it's okay if they make a mistake. So you're really present with your team and strategic with your team and not frazzled. And I would say another sign of vibrant leadership is when you feel confident to take a decision based on judgment. That you are not procrastinating, waiting for more information and more clarity, that you feel ready to make a decision. It's one of the key areas that women could improve is speed of decision making.
I loved something that you said in our initial conversation, which was finding those projects or those tasks that fuel you, but are also the promotable tasks and letting other things fall by the wayside. You know, what are the projects that when you're sitting down with your review with your manager, you can say, I led this from soup to nuts. And I think as women, we tend to take on tasks that are not always promotable. They're the remembering the birthday celebrations. They're organizing the holiday parties in the office. And so I loved your guidance there about finding those tasks and really making sure that you laser in on those.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're thinking about choosing those strategic projects, what I have people do is to apply 4 filters. So the first filter is about the business impact, how much each of your projects has its potential to deliver big business results. And that could be revenue. It could also be cost saving. It could also be improvements in performance. And then the second one is about visibility. So is this a project that is yours, or are you a supporting player? Because if you are a supporting player and you're working really hard to deliver it, but it's not going to get you in the room, it's not something that you can hang your hat on, you want to think about that. The other is whether it is aligned with where you want to go in your career. So is this, a lady that I'm working with at the moment, she wants to move to a CCO position. She knows that she's not going to do that within her organization. And yet she's still really struggling with visibility within her organization. Like, I have to be at that meeting because there's going to be the CEO is going to be there. Right? I need to be present at this because it's about visibility. And it took us a while to understand that it was visibility that was the thing that was really driving those decisions. That was the thing that was making her say yes to things that were not actually career driving. Yeah. So choosing those projects and knowing what they are, and then being able to delegate and have boundaries that can shield you from all the other projects. That's where the gold is.
Let's talk about moms who are potentially experiencing burnout or heading there. What is one small shift? I mean, we're talking the mom who's like secretly crying in the car and then pulling their face together at pickup. What is one small shift that they can make starting tomorrow to lead from a place of energy rather than exhaustion?
Oh my goodness, choosing one thing. I'm not going to be able to choose just one. I'm going to have to throw a few at you. And you can just edit out and decide which one you want to go for. So I would say having a script that you can rely on to help you say no.
Okay.
So when you run into your CEO in the corridor and they're like, let's maybe just throw this at you. and you just say, I would love to help. Can I just check my agenda and get back to you tomorrow? And all it does is take you off the autopilot of automatically saying yes, and gives you space to go, okay, does this actually align with the strategic objectives of the organization? Because often it doesn't. You know, CEOs have their own little pet projects too.
Sure.
And then also, does it build my career? Does it align with my energy? You know, is this aligned to something that's going to make me feel energetic, or is it going to sap me? So it just gives you 24 hours to think. One thing that I really think is very useful is de-escalation. So every meeting or email, and you will have tons of them, where you are just there as an inform, you know, the Rasky inform. You're not really making active decisions in them. You are not making massive contributions to them. You can just step back. And again, a simple email script that's like, hi, my strategic priorities right now are this, this, and this. So I'm going to step back from this. Can you please take me off copy? I'm not going to turn up to these meetings anymore. It's a really critical project, and I am absolutely available for escalation. But otherwise, I trust your leadership.
I love both of those examples. And in the CEO example, I love what you said about taking you off the autopilot of saying yes. And part of me wonders, within that 24 hours elapsing, did that CEO find someone else? You know, you come back to that CEO and they're like, oh, don't worry about it. I spoke to, you know, Simon about it, Sharon about it, whatever the name may be, because you're just the first person they ran into in the hallway, or you're that first person that top of mind is always saying yes for them. So I wonder if that's, you know, even just doing that, let me get back to you, you know, kind of forces their hand at potentially finding an alternate.
Yeah. And you're also just saying, like, let me check in with my priorities, because that's what we're trained to do. We're trained to say yes. It's also, in fairness, it's the reason why we are where we are, right? It's the reason we get promoted is because we are a safe pair of hands. But we don't want to be a safe pair of hands. We want to be strategically indispensable.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. Claps all around. Your second example about, you know, taking a look at the meetings where you're just an informed, to your point on the RACI, saying to your team, you guys have got it. I'm here. I trust you. Why, and maybe it came out of some of your research, why do you think we feel this need to be everywhere? I mean, I can literally remember looking at my calendar and being like, okay, I need to split myself 5 ways at 2 p.m. because I need to be in all of these. And did I really need to be in all of them? Potentially not, but it was that like feeling. Is it control? Is it, to your point, is it just being the yes person so often?
This is a wonderful question. So something that we go into in a lot of depth during the program is looking at the patterns that are keeping us stuck. So we have these beliefs about what we need to be doing. For example, I need to be in all of these meetings. So what is the belief underneath that's stopping us from saying no? And I already told you one. One is visibility. So for one of the ladies that I was working with, she's like, oh, but I just feel like I have to have that visibility, you know, like everybody needs to know that I'm involved, that I'm participating, that I'm across everything. For others, it could be trust. So they don't feel like they can trust the people in the room to make the right decision, that they don't feel they can trust whoever they might delegate it to. For others, it is control. Also, it's this sense of like, okay, the standards need to be of a certain level. I feel physically uncomfortable if I don't know everything that's going on. These are things that in some cases are very deep rooted, and we need to kind of peel them back a little bit. And oftentimes it takes a while for us to do that. And we'll keep going back and going, why were you in that room? That was a control thing, wasn't it? And then other times you'll just be like, oh, I just did a visibility thing again. You know, it's like, but that awareness is where it begins, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I can see that. And I can see how everyone's drivers might be different. I also wonder too, for moms specifically, we're in such modes of control all the time, control at home, control over our kids' schedules, control over what's purchased for the house and things like that. I wonder if it's like, again, to your point of autopilot, it's just so hard for us to shut it down in whatever sphere we may be playing in at the time.
100%. And it's also because we're so fiercely capable. Again, that phrase, but I should be able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you should be able to do this, but not at the volume that you're doing. It is absolutely fine to be able to do this when you've stripped back to your core projects and you make those projects sing. They are the projects that make you famous within the organization, right? They're the things that you build your reputation on. There's no way that you can do that if you're still doing 47 other things.
You've got to figure out a balance.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we talked about when we spoke on the phone is the 4 Ds. So with that 47 items, what am I going to do with them? And we already talked about one, there's de-escalation. So things where you're just informed, you're just there and you don't really need to be there. Another is delegation, where you can truly hand it over and not just have someone help you, but they actually own the outcome. Another, which is quite an interesting one, is delete. Because honest to goodness, every woman that I work with has at least 3 things on her agenda that if she took them off, nobody would even notice.
Oh,
They are on there because we have these incredible standards and we're just like, yeah, but I want to be the best. I want this to be amazing. And I want this is a place that we can grow from. But actually the rest of the business doesn't know about it, doesn't care about it. Nobody would even notice if you didn't do it. And yet it's still there as this like agenda item for you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then the last one is defer. And so when we look at these targets, these critical projects, the core projects, we look at every 3 months. And actually for some businesses, like if you work in the government or in education, your timescales may be longer because, you work to terms or they sort of move out. If you're working in a startup or a scale up, your timescales may be way shorter because you're much faster and agile. But usually it's about 3 months. And it may be that you can just defer it till the next 3 months. It makes more sense strategically, makes more sense to the team resources.
I love that. The 4 Ds. How do you feel, or let me ask this question. How can women, and I guess I'm in particularly talking about moms because that's the season of life I'm in, and I know I personally struggle with this, talk to their bosses about sustainable workloads without coming off like, oh, I need special accommodation because I am a mother, or, I've got all these other things that I need to prioritize.
Okay. So the first of all is to get that clarity on those projects.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have the clarity on what is important and you go to your boss and say, this is what I'm going to focus on. But by the way, these other 47 things that you probably expecting me to do, I've also found something else to do with those. So these are the ones that we're going to do next quarter. This is going to be handed over to Sandra and my team. This is going to be, I'm de-escalating myself from this project. I'm just going to be there for escalation when it's needed. And honestly, there's so much fear around doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Without fail.
About it.
Yeah, exactly. Without fail, everyone I speak to is like, my boss is never going to go for this. There's just no way that my boss is going to go for this. And 8 or 9 times out of 10, they're just like, oh, great. And actually, they appreciate it because you've done their work for them. You said, this is what we should really be focused on. And it may be that you might have some tweaks and they're like, maybe this rather than this because of them having more information than you do. But if you've got a boss that is open to communication and is not completely unreasonable, then honestly, having that clarity and going to them with that clarity makes a huge difference. Now, if you have a boss that isn't that way, there are 2 things that can happen. One One is that you really just push the decision back to them. And you say, look, I want to be able to deliver this incredibly well. I'm not going to be able to do that if I've still got 5 other things. So you tell me what I'm prioritizing. But you're not apologizing for your capacity. It's a finite resource. And then in the case that you have a really bad one who will not take no for an answer, you just don't do it. And if you stay focused on those 2 to 3 big, high-delivering core projects and you make them sync and they land beautifully, they won't care anyway.
Yeah, it'll pay off in the end no matter what.
And I'm not suggesting that it isn't uncomfortable. It is. And particularly in the few months where they're going...
Yeah, you'd usually do this.
But the point is, if you're able to show a really distinct improvement in your deliverables, they will let the other stuff go. And you're also building your reputation outside of your boss. You know, you are creating a story and a narrative about what you are capable of delivering that gets marketable. You know, you can take that story beyond your boss, beyond your organization. Yeah.
I also like in the first scenario you mentioned, which is lasering in on the 3 to 4, but pointing to them all the other 47 and saying, I've thought about these. I have a suggestion for these or a game plan for these. I think any boss you'd hope that any boss would be appreciative of that, because that's also removing work off of their plate of thinking about the other 47 things and who they're going to go to. So you've already been proactive in the right way. Love it. I love it. We, in our kind of 30-minute connect, our last conversation, we talked about how women can have a tendency to over-communicate in the workplace. So if we're going to miss a meeting, we're not going to be there, or, we need to leave early, something like that. We tend to over-communicate. We tend to give the what, but we have to because this, but don't worry because I'm this. You can reach me here. I'm going to check in again. We offer all kinds of apologies and such. But how can we adjust this to a phrase that I loved that you used, which was communicating with influence and not over communicating in the workplace?
Yes. Yeah. This is really about going from proving to positioning. And silence is your friend. I have a couple of lovely examples here. One is a lady who just stopped talking in her team meetings. It was her team meeting. She was leading, and she had always led it, and she had always done like 70% of the talking. And she just stopped, and she just allowed her team to lead their own pieces, like update each other, question and interrogate each other. And what was really interesting, she had a couple of them, because she had a really good relationship with her team. She had a couple of them reach out to her like, oh, are you okay? Like, just checking in, because he seemed kind of quiet. And she was like, no, I was just trying something out. I wanted to see how it would be to let you guys have a bit more space to lead and take ownership. And they were like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. We love this. And it just became a massive shift. And now, in general, all her conversations with her team start with them. Silence is your friend. You become a great listener. You let them answer their questions before they even ask you.
Yeah. Remove yourself too as like a safety net. Like in those situations, everyone's looking at you as the safety net to lead the meeting. And no one's going to grow that way either. So I think it benefits all the parties involved.
I love that.
And another really nice example of this, I had a client who's a finance director, and she had a new leadership team come in. It was a big merger, and she was, really stressing about how she wanted to prove that she had the right to be there. They didn't know her, et cetera, et cetera. And so she would spend a lot of time preparing presentations with all the justification, all the explanations, everything. And we made a big switch. She started to go into those meetings and her piece would just be extremely short and to the point. And again, the first time she experimented with that, she was super nervous and just like, this is a different way of operating. And she just went in with her deck, wasn't laying absolutely everything on the table for everybody to pick over and have an opinion on, but just literally, this is a decision that we've made and this is why. And then they came with questions. Of course they came with questions, but she knew all of the answers.
But she didn't have to put all those answers in the slides.
Exactly. And so as a consequence, it made her look extraordinarily professional and very credible because she didn't need to put it all in the slides. She only put in what was the most important and the big takeouts. She got approval on that deck within 15 minutes.
That's
and
amazing.
often they, because of all the information she put in, they would be like, oh, we're going to have a separate conversation about this in order to close it out. And instead, she knew the answer to every question. And she just was like, I felt amazing.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that. All right. We chatted about self-care a bit and what self-care means. And we talked about sort of this fallacy of self-care being like, oh, it's a bubble bath. It's a manicure. Go get a manicure. But what does true self-care for the ambitious leadership women look like?
I want to caveat this a little bit because I still think that if you are really disconnected from yourself, just making that baby step of going to get your nails done is actually can actually be quite a commitment for a woman who's not done that for a while. So I would caveat that a little, but so one of the things that I talk about are the 7 basic needs. And so some of those needs are autonomy, for example. How easily can you choose what you are spending your time on? Another basic need is support. So do you have people that you can rely on? You're not doing it all alone. Another one, which is a big one for me, is meaning. Are you doing work that aligns with your values and what you actually care about? And for me, self-care is about making sure that those needs, all of those needs, are being considered and not abandoned. One of my favorites, and honestly, one that is depressingly low rated consistently at women, is joy. Do you feel alive and not just productive? And by really thinking about those needs and rating yourself on where you marks out of 5, like how well am I meeting my own needs? It really helps you to recognize where you need to invest. And it doesn't necessarily look like rest. I mean, rest is one of the needs, but it doesn't necessarily look like rest. It can look like going out dancing with friends.
Sure.
It's just really important that we recognize that we are the center of our own universes. And everything that we touch is influenced by us. And so if we come from a place of depletion, everything we touch is touched by depletion. And so putting our rest and time for ourselves as a core priority, it really is not selfish.
Not annoying.
It has a dramatic effect on our friends and family and our team, on our children. Joy is a biggie for me.
I love that. I love that. What do you feel is the number one? I know I keep limiting you. You probably have 3, but I'm going to limit you to 1. What do you feel is the number one mistake women are making at the workplace today? And let's go high achieving women who want to continue to grow in their careers.
Oh my goodness me. How do I choose one thing? I would say probably trying to prove competence, trying to prove competence through over delivery rather than through demonstrating judgment.
I like that one a lot. Competence through over delivery resonates because it's that list of 47 things, and you feel extremely proud of yourself that you've checked all 47 things off the list. But going back to our conversation earlier, it's like those 47 things can be great, but are they going to move the needle in the least? Or were they just things that you wanted to knock off your list so you felt a sense of self-accomplishment? Yes.
So many of us are productivity junkies. You know, we really are addicted to productivity.
Addicted to productivity is right. This is a fun question, and you have had such a beautiful career, so I'm very curious to your response on this one. If there is one thing you could say to past Eleanor, late 20s, she's making her way up the corporate ladder, what would you say to her?
This one's probably quite easy. Do less.
Really?
Really be intentional about what you're working on instead of just running on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
I have, when I left corporate for the first time because of burnout, and I went back into corporate with really clear boundaries and did very well and was really happy in my job. But I had my boy, when Edward came along, as we all experience, our priorities change massively. And suddenly I was just like, you know what? I think I actually want to spend some time with my boy. You know, he's the light of my life and I'm not going to get this time again. And so I decided to resign. But I had done a good job and I had shares vesting. And so I was like, I'm going to wait until the shares vest because that's going to be a nice cash injection. It's going to see me through some time to be with my son. And so I had 10 months between making the decision and doing the deed. And in those 10 months, I stripped back on everything. Like I really just took my foot off the accelerator. I focused on building my team, making sure that they were ready to take over, even if they got somebody terrible sitting on top of them. I focused only on delivering really high impact projects that were going to land within the next 3 months because that's how long I had to make an impact. I stopped fighting all the battles. I stopped, speaking up in every single meeting. I was just like, okay. And in those 10 months, I got promoted.
Wow. Even though you were like mentally on your way out. Wow. And you think it was just because you focused on the areas that mattered the most?
Exactly. Focused on the areas that mattered the most, really built the team, really focused on how could I delegate much more effectively, stopped answering their questions, would just answer their questions with questions.
Mm-hmm.
You know how we do with our kids, right? Like,
what do you think?
What do you think?
Yeah.
And honestly, like in fairness to myself, and I think it's probably true of almost all the women I interviewed, we don't really check out anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like you go, oh, I'm out of here, so I'm just going to drop everything. We work diligently till the bitter end. We do. And so it wasn't like in fairness to the promotion, it wasn't like I just was like, mic drop. It was more that I just was much, much more intentional. And I was like, I'm going to leave the office at 5. I am checking out. I'm not going to be logging on the weekends. Like I really gave myself boundaries and I was rested and I was joyful and I was hopeful about what was coming, like this time with my son in the future as well. So it all just kind of came together. But yeah, it's a story that I use a lot because it was shocking.
Oh, it's shocking to me. And sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but can we close out the story, which is, did you stay on because you got promoted or no, you stayed firm in your decision?
Yes. And I had to take the promotion because the promotion happened about 6 7 months in. And I was like, if I don't take the promotion, they're going to know something.
Sure.
And so I took the promotion and actually did an insane amount of stuff structurally to prepare the business for my departure, even before I told them. But it was manageable.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why it was so shocking to me also is because I had always held myself to these ridiculously high standards. Like nothing was ever good enough. And so I was always pushing for more and more and more. And then at the point where I realized, like, I'm going to step back, I just want to deliver really well these core pieces. And I also got a lot better at like 80 for 20. Like, yeah, this presentation isn't beautiful, but it's going to do the job.
Yeah. And let the rest go. Let the 20 fall by the wayside. I think even your decision to spend the time to leave and to spend the time with your son, even after being promoted, I think that's a lesson in and of itself that other people can learn from, because I think it's easy to feel, oh, they promoted me, I've got to stay. Like they value me so much. The stories that we can kind of convince ourselves or tell ourselves. And to your point, going back to your priorities change and you stuck to your prioritization with your son being, your number one priority at the time.
Yeah, totally.
All right, my friend, you have been so generous with your time and I am so grateful. We're going to start wrapping up here. And one of the things that I like to wrap up with my guest is something called cheat codes. So cheat codes are one thing that you have implemented in your home life just to make everything easier for yourself, your son, your husband, your family.
Yeah. Again, I've got a long list of these because it was part of my interview question. But my favorite one, and one that I'm just grateful for regularly, is simplifying birthday presents. So, I don't know about you, but my son has a birthday every week. And it seems he's always going to birthday parties. And so at the beginning of the year, I look at the the toys that he played with himself the year before, and I say, okay, what's been really successful? This year it was a stomp rocket. And I just buy 8 stomp rockets and they go in the cupboard and I just get one out. Sometimes I actually wrap them all ahead of time. And it just means that there is no last minute dash.
Ugh. Brilliant. This is a good cheat code, Eleanor. And I can't tell you the number of times I've like flown through the Walgreens parking lot and some kid has ended up with like a bouncing rubber ball and maybe a random doll that they had. So I love this and I'm going to steal this one. This was really good. Thank you. Eleanor, your work at the Vibrant Leader Academy is amazing. I have put so many friends in touch with you who would benefit from this. I can't wait to keep the conversation going. I know you have a workshop coming up for ambitious female leaders to get clarity on what moves the needle, which is what, most of this conversation, I feel like we keep coming back to that, is like finding those things. So I know that folks can register at vibrantleaderacademy.com. I'm going to make sure I link to this as well. Super excited. I'm just so grateful that we were able to connect and do this.
Me too. It was a wonderful conversation, Julie. I loved it. You're a fantastic interviewer and I can't wait to see what else you've got coming.